quit my job at the venture capital firm I worked in. I had a great salary, I had a great position, and I quit to start this.
Money doesn't solve all your problems. It solves the easy ones.
The revenue is vanity, but actual profit, shrink, tighten your business model, and then scale.
Yarin Gaon is a lifelong entrepreneur and former venture capital entrepreneur in residence
who built and sold Israel's largest e-commerce platform for military goods.
He now helps $1 to $10 million companies get unstuck by improving strategy, operations, and profitability.
Who's going to give that to you if you stay locked in that room? Do it now, do it now, do it now.
Tomorrow is too late. It's just no one's guarantee you're going to be here tomorrow.
Build a better business for your children. Build a better business for your legacy. I'm just curious, why Salt Lake City? You said I went there for the snow, but I'm looking at the sort of the biography on Yarin, and it's like Tel Aviv to is it Miami? Is that where you went?
No, we went to Chicago.
Oh, okay, all right. So you went to Chicago. And is that where you did grad school?
So I finished my undergrad. I finished my grad school. I did my last semester as an exchange student at Kellogg. And so how about I give us a quick, yes. So to your question, my wife and I love to do a midterm experiences. So basically every year we spend 2-3 months of the year elsewhere.
Okay.
So during COVID, I was starting my work at my venture capital firm, and COVID started, and it was like, okay, it was Chicago. It started to get winter, and we were like, what are we doing in Chicago?
Yeah.
It's Chicago during COVID. So we broke the lease, and we put everything in a storage unit, and we went on an 8-month long trip around the U.S. to see where we want to live. So we sampled different cities. That's how I got to Salt Lake. Yeah.
So it's just your wife, a dog, in a van or something? You're just driving around the United States?
Yes. Well, I didn't stay in a van, but yes. We did Salt Lake, we did North California, we did West Hollywood for a couple of months. We did Florida, and I loved Salt Lake, and we kept coming back. So we ended up buying a house here, and this is supposed to be my winter house.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I want to be here in the winter, and I want to develop a couple more properties like this, like midterm rentals that are rented when we're not there, and hop and have a nomadic lifestyle. I don't know how it's going to work with a 2-year-old. It's a little bit more complex. We'll see.
Yeah, I felt this similarly, when I first had a kid. I was like, we'll plant our roots here, but when the weather changes, we'll just move.
Yeah.
And then I started to feel bad about the kid not having friends. That was
How old?
how old are they now?
Yes.
Uh,
How old were they? Are they now? And how old were you when the decision came?
yeah, so it just if we rewind time is like I think when we had the same philosophy prior to even having kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
my kids are older now, but and and frankly, the only thing that makes sense, like you, I'm Israeli, and I have family right in Israel.
Yeah.
I do, and so it would make sense to go to Israel
Mhm.
during the summer. Go to Europe during the
Very
summer.
hot. Very hot.
Yeah, I mean, I live basically uh in a desert. I live in San Diego, so
Kind of different desert than Tel Aviv. Yes, but yes,
yeah. But
this is different.
it is very sort of Mediterranean, right? Like where I live,
Yes.
and
California is very Mediterranean. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. We homeschool, which I'm not.
Do you really?
Yeah, listen, I'm not trying to proselytize you. Those are the other guys that live in Salt Lake City, but but I'm not trying to convince you to do something that you wouldn't otherwise. But
No, we were considering homeschool. One of my portfolio companies is a homeschool curriculum company's
interesting.
B2C product.
Okay.
Yes, and it kind of exposed me to the world of homeschool.
Yeah.
And if you have the patience, which is still like a big question mark for me, it's an amazing opportunity. Um, I'm not at that stage yet. I have 3 more years until I need to make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I can give you this piece of advice.
Please.
Uh, the, he who wrestles with God, right? The definition of Israel. But I will tell you my opinion, and you can decide if if you like the opinion, if your wife likes the opinion, if you want to wrestle with this opinion. But um, when we put our kids into public school, they we didn't really pay attention, right? So I have a career. My wife is a homemaker, and I wasn't really focused on the schooling, right? Kind of like
Okay.
you, I'm very entrepreneurial. And so it didn't really matter what they were teaching in school. I was going to do what I needed to do in order to sort of get out of the system, right? Get out of the
Yeah.
matrix.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, and I don't know how school works in Israel. I never sort of asked my dad. My dad's Israeli, my mom's American. But in America, you've got these, school rooms with, 35 children, and it's seven rows, and it's like 5 desks each, and they're all neatly sort of arranged. And it really does look like, you're getting your kids prepared for the Industrial Revolution, right? To be sitting
It
at,
really is like 1900 for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're getting
Yes.
ready to like work at
Yeah.
sewing machines or something.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and so I think once I sort of went to like one of these like parent school things after hours, and I sort of took a look at it, and it was sort of haunting. And I don't know if it was like a throwback, like it gave me PTSD, to what we saw when we were kids. But I was like, this isn't right. And then the final straw, right? The straw that broke the camel's back, and then I'll sort of give it back to you. But was my son bought a Trump hat at the
How old?
uh, at the time he was 10.
Okay.
But he bought it with his own money. We were in Las Vegas, and there's a Trump hotel there.
Okay.
We were staying at the Wynn, and so he's like, I want to go check out the Trump hotel. We're not very political in the house. I will tell you, sort of, as a footnote, I did vote for Trump both times, but we don't talk about politics. We talk about Israel. We talk about, we talk about the things that sort of matter to us. But he bought the hat, and then he wore the hat to school.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And so I don't know
How did that make you feel?
well, listen, this is your show, but I will say, could you imagine you've got these liberal teachers, right, that see Trump as this existential threat to democracy, like some people view Netanyahu, right?
Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah.
happen to be pro Netanyahu, but again, separate conversation for another day. But that's kind of how they see him, as sort of everything but the crown. And so they would ostracize him. They would give him less
The
rights.
teachers?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And so
Is that in San Diego?
that's in San Diego. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was public school. And so
Wow.
at one point, my wife was bringing him to school in the morning, and he was crying. And we are tough. There's no crying in this house, right? But he was crying on the way to school. And she was like, what's going on? And he finally told her, as best he could with a 10-year-old sort of vocabulary, that he wasn't being treated fairly. And so she talked to the teachers, and they kind of confessed. They're like, well, he's wearing this hat to school. It's very divisive. Da, 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 da. It's not outlawed. It's not forbidden. People have a right to express themselves. Meanwhile, and this is Yarin, this is me as an older brother trying to give you advice.
Yeah.
Kids are wearing, I don't know if you've ever heard of this term, but furries. You'll experience it.
I have not.
If you put your kids in
Identify?
school,
Okay.
they'll identify as mammals, right?
Oh, that I've heard of that before. Yes. America's interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so anyway, you can identify as whatever you want. You can go to the bathroom in a like where a cat would go, whatever that's called. With the little pebbles.
With
or
litter?
whatever. Yeah, little litter. Yeah, you can go to the restroom in a litter at school, but you can't wear a Trump hat. So anyway, we
Wow.
pulled him from school,
Okay.
and we've been homeschooling for this year, and I can just tell you that it has been the most amazing experience. And so, as a parent, you've got work figured out. Like I read your bio, like I've sort of followed your journey, right, with the show notes. The next frontier, right, isn't you putting your kids into school and just closing your eyes and sort of, you know, seeing what happens and you roll the dice. I sort of, I would ask you to, especially since you said, right, in your portfolio, you have this homeschool company. I
Yeah.
would sort of like really do the due diligence ahead of time and make a decision sort of what life you want to live, um, and what sort of life you want to offer for your child, because the public school life, and I would argue obviously the private school life also is quite
Yeah.
limited, right? Like it's almost like these blinders that they put on horses, right? And they're just kind of sort of marching you by this leather strap, right? Through 6.5 hours of school each day, 5 days a week. So
Basically, like a so the way I see this is like a glorified babysitter. And my wife and I keep having conversation as to, okay, so what is more impactful? If my kid gets to be in different places throughout the year and have different experiences
right.
and maybe learn different, maybe we do like a 3 months in France instead, like what would be more beneficial to his education and enrichment, and what would be destructive, right? What's the trade-off?
Right.
And then to answer your question, so who carries the burden of homeschool in your family? Is that
that's
you? Is that your
that's
wife?
that's
It's like that's the cost, right? Because if there wasn't any cost and any burden, no question, happy to.
right. Yeah.
But there is a burden.
Yeah, there is a burden. But obviously, uh, money changes things, right? In the
It
sense
makes it easier
that's
for
right,
sure.
right. It's like people are like, well, money doesn't solve all your problems. Well, it
It solves
does.
some.
It solves the
Yeah.
easy ones, right?
Yes.
No one's going to solve the tough ones for you, but the money
Yes.
definitely solves the easy ones, right? Where you want to live, the type of healthcare you can have, and definitely the education that you can provide to your children, right? Like if you look at if you look at what sort of education that you got, and I understand like you came to America to finish your undergrad and then but
My grad, yeah.
yeah, but like let me ask you this.
Please.
If you could do it over and you could provide your child with an entrepreneurial education
Mhm.
where they're solving real problems, but you're furnishing them with real tools that ostensibly existed, but they just never seemingly had access to them, meaning that the tools in their head, right, that the sort of mechanics of making real life decisions, they don't all of a sudden at 18 years of age become available, right? They've been sitting there and lying dormant, waiting to be refined. That's why I call them tools. So it's like,
Yes.
when do you give your kid some people would say, well, I let my son shoot a gun at 5. Okay. Well, it's a tool. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It
It's
is.
a
It's a
tool.
skill. Yes.
If you refine it and if you teach and you monitor, and it's used properly, right, under adult supervision, um, then I would say no problem, right? I sort of am a libertarian in that sense. But let me ask you this, and that it's sort of by that same token, the fine motor skills sort of in the brain that are used to sort of not discern like good from bad, right? They're not like binary switches, right? These are tools that will help them be more successful in their careers, more successful as an adult, more successful as a parent. Um, do we only give them access to them at 18, or should we start giving access to those tools, letting them make those decisions and leverage that critical thinking at an early age? That's what you will want to sort of decide, in that same way that you're like, well, me and my wife are sort of changing the weather, as it were, and we're sort of like,
Yeah.
we're deciding, well, we're going to do summers in Nice, we're going to do winters in Salt Lake, right? We're sort of
Yeah.
right, we're like, planting flags all around the globe. I think just as important will be like what type of education you want to offer, because it is an offer in the sense that
Yeah.
it's a gift, right? And sometimes, gifts go unappreciated, right? So will your
Yeah.
kid appreciate that gift, and will you want to give it to him is the question.
I can tell you that my father gave me a gift that I appreciate So I started my first company when I was 14. And for a 14-year-old to start a company, it's very much on the parent side than on the kid side.
Right.
Like my father was an entrepreneur himself. He was an accountant. He had a small firm, and he enabled me to experiment in a domain that is usually not very kids friendly. So
Is
he
this
trusted.
the e-commerce like for military goods?
No, that was my first business, was a SaaS business. I think like
Your first business
so
was a SaaS business at
I
14.
know it's so interesting. Like,
You
because
know
I
how I
learned how
know
to
you're
code.
Jewish? You know how I know you're Jewish? My first business
Tell
was a
me.
SaaS business. Yeah.
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 Well, we didn't call it SaaS back then because the word didn't exist. But
Yeah.
yes, basically, um, and he trusted me to the extent where I was 14. I wasn't even allowed to open a bank account. So I transacted under him. So he opened a bank account. He gave me a checkbook under his name, and he trusted me to transact with real money. And I made some money at 14, not a ton of money, but like money. And I had ups and I had down, and I had people trying to sue me, and I had like I experienced grown up business making at 14. And it's because my father and mother in the background, but mostly my father, they enabled me. They gave me the platform to experiment
Yeah.
in a confined environment. So to your question, it's interesting. You're talking a lot about the formal side of education, which is still big question mark in my mind.
Yeah.
So am I going to send him to a regular school, homeschool? But the extra side, it's very clear to me what we're going to do and what areas we're going to cultivate.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, let me
yeah,
ask you this, right? Because um, I'm older than you, right? I'm 46. Are you like
I'm 34.
34? Okay. So a little bit older than you. And I'm gonna give you some experiences that I sort of was lucky enough, right? To have at probably your age. Um, you know, you're sitting in this nice little office in Salt Lake, and you're on your computer, and I hear Slack in the background, right? Obviously.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Sorry.
You're fine. Listen, it's, you know, this is life,
Workday.
as my dad would
Yeah.
say, right? Um, but there's a million different distractions with business, especially if you have like a portfolio of companies. And it doesn't matter. Listen, you know, you could, you know, have a venture capital fund, you could be involved in private equity, or you could be managing a bunch of small businesses yourself, right? You could have a couple self storages and a couple different restaurants and a construction company, but the noise will always be there, meaning the distractions, and probably this is the worst. But there's
So,
right, yeah, it's like a black hole, right? It steals your time, right? It steals your joy. Um, it well, it's a thief, right? It's even worse than there's a famous phrase about comparing yourself to others and how it's the thief of joy in life. But
it
really,
is.
yeah, I honestly I feel this is there's generally you can I don't know, can you see this on my screen?
Yeah.
That's
Is
my
it your kid?
no, this is my father in Israel.
It's blurry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's blurry. Yeah. But it's a thief. It's the thief of joy, and there is an equivalency between comparison and sort of, you know, death scrolling, right, on social media, because inevitably, right, it becomes the you drawing these false equivalencies, looking at like highlight reels of other people's lives. But
Mhm.
in sort of going back to what I was talking about with the experiences, you can sit in your office in Salt Lake City and concentrate on, you know, fractional partners, and work with, you know, these, you know, chaotic founders that you know, that are trying to run their businesses and that need structure and discipline and um you know, that need you to give them that investor level thinking, right? With
Yes.
right with empathy, right?
Correct.
But
No non-judgment.
that's right, right. Sort of absent of judgment. But my question to you is, who's going to give that to you if you stay locked in that room? And sure, you can do you know, you can do Zoom meetings, and you can do, right, you can do phone calls, and you know, occasionally once a month you can go and travel and meet people. But this ties neatly into what I was saying about, giving that entrepreneurial sort of experience to your children, which you're one child as it is right now. Um, but imagine if, and this is again me imparting sort of advice, and imagine if you took my advice, which would be amazing. But imagine if you got out of that office and you played pickleball and you played padel and you played golf and you got outside of that office with your child, right? So let's just imagine that your child is now 10 and he's hearing you talk about doing deals, offering units, right, of your fund, hearing you overcome objections and how you deal with that rejection. In my opinion, that type of, sort of scholastic, if you will, upbringing is incomparable. The type of education that he could get, right, locked in the, this 2x2 desk,
I know. I call it like a jail. In Israel, it really does look like jail. Not like,
Yeah.
but it's just old.
No, listen, for us, it's jails. It's not to keep the kids in, but it's to keep the murderers that love to shoot up schools in America out. But yeah, they do look like
Yes.
jails. But again, I just, you're when I was reading about like your character, like you're structured and you're disciplined and you're direct, obviously, right? Israeli, but you have empathy
Yes.
and you're supportive. I'm reading about all these things and I'm like, wow, how does he plan to impart this type of education? He's doing it to these founders, but as a father, right? This show isn't just about being an entrepreneur outside of the office, right? This is about, inside of the
Yeah.
office. But how do
By
you do,
osmosis.
right? By osmosis.
But
Okay.
by osmosis. Like I hold myself and my founders and my child and my wife and the same operating system or the same we'll call it core rules or values or whatever we want to call it as I do for myself. So osmosis, like it's the same. My business runs the same way my family runs, the same way that my personal life runs. It's the same core principle. I don't get to choose different core principles for my business and different core principles for my family. One of my mentors years ago told me that I don't remember what we were talking. We talked about brand and brand identity, and he taught me something really interesting. He taught me that brand identity is almost always the same as the founder's identity because you start by basically deploying your values and pouring them into your brand. So a lot of times it's just a mirror of who you are. Think of it as like the decisions you make are you are the one making the decision. It's the same mechanism or filter you put for yourself as you do for your company a lot of times.
Yeah.
Same goes with my family. Sometimes it's hard.
Yeah. I listen, like the way you're making it sound is almost robotic. It's like, I'm
It's not robotic. It's systematic. But yes,
it's
but because that
it's systematic.
it's systematic because I'm a linear thinking kind of guy. But
Yeah,
yes,
I get it. No, I get it. Is how would you describe your wife? Would you describe her like a similar line of thinking?
no, my wife is the opposite. So I'm an introvert.
Mhm.
She's the extrovert. She's the social committee. We actually met on Birthright. So for people that don't know, Birthright is a trip for young Jewish adults. You basically get a free trip to go to Israel and experience Israel. I was a student, undergrad student at that time. So they pair you with Israelis so you get to have an experience together. And we clicked. So she moved to Israel and then I moved back to the States.
And
She
she's
is
an American.
yeah, she's American. She's from North Chicago, north suburb of Chicago. That's why we started in Chicago.
Gotcha.
And she's like the social committee. Without her, I won't have any social life. No, I would, but like she helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
And together we call it like so we use EOS terms, which she's the visionary and I'm the integrator.
Jeez.
It's really I know.
It is.
But it's true. She comes up with 10 amazing ideas every day, and then we choose one and we execute. And that's how we get to all these places, and I get to be in all these different places and do all these different things because my wife dreams.
Yeah.
and then 1 of 10 clicks, and then we execute.
Yeah. Now people are going to say that the Jews control the robots.
Ha! Well, they're gonna say regardless of what I say.
Yeah. No, but listen, you're talking about EOS and stuff, but okay. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Listen. I'm not a marriage and family therapist, but it is interesting. So, does your wife? Um.
The company is an organization, William. Just like a family is an organization, just like it's just a different cell, and it's about the dynamic within that organization.
Yeah.
That's just different purpose organization, but it is. You're building your org, just like you're building your company, you're building your family. There's just different versions of cells that you're creating
That's right.
as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me what your wife does for a living. Does she work inside the home? Does she have a career outside the home?
So she's a homemaker. I really wanted to push. She's an amazing salesperson, and I really pushed her to get into real estate because we have we're playing in real estate a little bit. We have a couple of properties, and we're building this. The challenge is that doesn't really align with this lifestyle.
Mm.
So we shared a little bit about the fact that I'm in my office, in my home, in my basement, and the fact that we travel a lot. And there's this conscious decision you need to make as to what exactly am I going to do in life? What are the professions that are relevant for me?
Mm.
What isn't? What aligns with my lifestyle? And real estate doesn't really align with the digital nomadic lifestyle. So right now she's a homemaker and she raises our son.
You're talking about
she gives me
residential real estate, is that right?
residential. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Mhm.
And so as you're sort of locked away in your basement, right, working on this portfolio of companies, how often is the case that you get to talk with her about what you're doing, what the opportunities are?
All the time.
All the time.
She's my partner.
Yeah.
Like she is my business partner. Not on my cap table, but she is my business partner.
Uh-huh.
And like she's my closest confidant. And she is not the only person, but she is one of the few people that have they have full alignment of interests. And B, they're like, she's here for the good and for the bad.
Yeah.
And some moments are very hard. So this has been a journey I'm just sharing with you. I quit my job with the venture capital firm I work in. I had a great salary, I had a great position, and I quit to start this. And this has been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Like business-wise, what I'm building now is just, I did not think it's going to be this difficult. I did not think it's going to take me that long. And it's a humbling experience because this is my fourth company. And I was like, okay, 6 months, no problem. In 6 months, we're going to be at the same place. And because I chose to build something that is slightly unique and different, I have faced challenges. And it's a really like an emotional roller coaster building from zero. Because I work with companies today that already passed that stage.
That's right.
Right? I work with companies that are doing somewhere between $2 and $20 million in sales. So they're not in the hustle stage, or they are, but they're really like they found some product market fit. But I, as my company, is still in the hustle stage. I am still in the 0 to 2.
Yeah.
It's a humbling experience
Yeah.
to go through this again. It's not my favorite act, but it's like,
Yeah.
what do you need to do to build this?
Let me ask you, and we'll come back to the journey from being a banker, right, working sort of for someone, right, building somebody else's vision, and then making that sort of that timely exit, sort of at a very young age, it sounds like, to go go build your own. But I have a question, just going back to the relationship that you have with your wife. This is an entrepreneurial show, and
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, especially men, right, we tend to undershare, right, what's going on up here because we feel, whether it's, fact or fiction, but we feel like it's destabilizing to our relationship with our wife, right?
Really?
If we, I think this is the American mindset. I can only give you like my perspective. as an
Yeah.
American entrepreneur or as Israeli American entrepreneur, but now you're an Israeli American entrepreneur.
I am.
Yeah. So what's funny is, right, you're like my father, right? My father married
Exactly.
an American woman from
Yeah.
North Chicago.
And you're my child in that scenario.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So
Mhm.
what I will ask you is, like, how do you share like your frustration and the setbacks with mom, right? Without her feeling like we're making the wrong decision. And maybe, Yaron, we need to like rethink this whole career choice because,
Yeah.
right, your dreams, your aspirations, they're beautiful and they're important. And I want to support you and share these experiences with you. But dreams and aspirations don't put food on the table. And at night, you come home and you slide into bed at 11 o'clock, and I haven't seen you all day, right? You're downstairs in the basement working, right? The only time I see you is when you come up for air to get some food. And, you have a 2-year-old. You talk about wanting to have other kids. You talk about wanting to travel, right? But when do I get to have a relationship again with my husband? When does our son get a relationship with his dad, right? What's enough, right? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's a complex question. So let's start with my wife is my ultimate hype girl. And I chose and I was lucky enough to get a wife that is she's my rock. Like she believes in me wholeheartedly and allows me to push in the hardest moments because we see the vision and she sees the vision. And we talk all the time. We talk about my business so much to the point she wants to start charging me for like consulting hours. So like she was like, I can't hear about this anymore. Enough. I think that between you and me, this lifestyle that we chose, which is the nomadic lifestyle,
Yeah.
is actually allowing me to be more involved in my family's life than if I was working a 9 to 5 job. So I am in my basement.
Well, hold on a second. That's not fair. First of all, it's not just
Why?
between you and me, right? Other people listen to the show. Secondarily, I will say you weren't working a 9 to 5. You
I
can't,
was never
we're
working
not,
that.
yeah, you're not allowed to lie. So this is, what I mean?
I did when I worked in the venture capital firm. I worked 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That was my world.
Yeah, 9 to 5.
Yes.
That's right. At 5 o'clock, you like neatly, punched a clock and then
No,
left. No, not at all.
no,
No.
no. But like, I chose this because
Were you more unavailable in that VC world, or
say it again.
were you more unavailable to your wife back then, or are you more unavailable today?
That's a really interesting question. I was more unavailable during my VC role because I was under other people's time and other people's dime. But I work harder now than I did at the VC world.
That's right.
So I work more now, but because I am prioritizing my activities, I get to choose what I do when, or my wife chooses for me what we do when, and she just puts it on my calendar and blocks it. So but it's dualic, right? Because you work on someone else's dime. It's not my time. Someone set a meeting with me. I'm a W-2 employee. Versus I set my own time. I am the one that chooses what slots are available. For example, Tuesdays are ski days. It's blocked. Don't schedule a meeting with me. Like
Yeah.
it's because it's that again, you live once. This is life. Both of my parents died 2 years ago and 6 months apart, and taught me
I'm sorry.
by doing that. Thank you. That life is extremely short.
Yeah.
They died at 67, both of them, and it's now. So yeah, I'm building, but like I also have to live, or it's the journey. There's no destination at the end of it, right? There is arbitrary destination that we put for ourselves is like our goals and our visions, but it's the day to day that keeps us. That's really what life is. Does that make sense?
It does. What can I ask? How they died?
My mom died of breast cancer, and my dad, we don't really know what he died from. My wife says from a broken heart. I don't know if that's true, but he wasn't a healthy man. But about 5 months after my mom passed,
Yeah.
he deteriorated and he passed too.
Yeah.
And both in Israel, that was a really like
Yeah. Do you
awakening.
yeah, well, listen, you said awakening, and now like there's this hastening, almost like it's increased, like since they're passing, this is like sort of increase the tempo of your life. Like you have to get things done, and including or inclusive of that, is prioritizing you enjoying life. Do you think before their passing you made that same time block to enjoy?
So I don't know if it increased urgency because I'm pretty urgent individual, but what it did increase is the concept of now, now, not like one day, not too long into the future, now. So we were living in Austin, and my parents died, and they're like, okay, do you want to go skiing? Do you wanna have a ski now? So it's the bias towards action that got pushed. Not so much the urgency. Urgency always existed, but it's like tomorrow is too late. It's just no one's guarantee you're gonna be here tomorrow. So go teach your kid to ski. So I have a time with him, and we have skis, and I take him skiing, and it's blocked on my calendar. Like now,
So it's more of an urgency. This has nothing like your folks passing away at a very early age. Um, that doesn't stress to you the importance of making time to enjoy life. It's more of just overall increased urgency, because you sound like a guy that already has urgency, right? This is like
yes,
this is something you have on tap already, if you will, right?
correct.
But the enjoyment that sort of
It, it,
envelops or
enjoy your capital, enjoy your time,
yeah,
deploy it where it brings you joy. Take that vacation,
yeah,
block that time.
yeah.
Your kid is only going to be two
Just
once.
once, just
Like
once.
that's
Yeah.
yes.
And it's interesting, like as a parent with older kids, I will tell you the idea that, well, he's 2, but then he'll be 3, and listen, if you miss something, he'll be 4, and don't worry, you'll catch back up when he's 5 and then 6. There are these interesting, um, the relationship that you have with your kid is nuanced in these time spans.
Say
There's,
more.
yeah, there's, for example, from 2 to 8, they want to play make believe. They want to dress up like, if they're boys, they want to dress up like superheroes. They want to like, but they want to pretend they're superheroes saving the world. They like firemen. They like police. They want to go watch the garbage truck come to your house.
Oh, he loves trucks,
Does
trucks
he?
and dinos.
And dinos,
Wow.
right? Yeah. Right. But have you ever
Yes.
found an adult that stares at the garbage trucks or at a construction site, apart from old Italian,
Yes.
apart from old Italian men, but who love to, there's actually a word in Italian for
Is it real?
men that like to sit there and watch construction sites. But in general, right, their mind is so creative at this young age, and it's filled with wonder, and the tragedy of being a parent, apart from all the goodness that comes from it, is that there's seasons of your children's life that you are gifted by God, that you get to witness. And then the season changes, just like there's snow on the ground right now. And then all of a sudden spring comes and birds are chirping and flowers, are sprouting. So there will be a day where your son doesn't want to like go on your shoulders,
I know.
right? And so
I'm not ready. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So it's just interesting, I will say. You said do it now. It reminds me of a business coach that I remember seeing on YouTube. and his name is Brian Tracy. Have you ever heard of Brian Tracy?
I have not. No.
Okay. Find some time. You're in the bathroom, you're, whatever. You're going to the mailbox. Google Brian Tracy. He has a famous phrase. He was a business coach, and he was made famous specifically for a phrase that, interestingly enough, you just moments ago uttered, which was "do it now."
Really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
He says, "Do it now, do it now, do it now." And it's a powerful phrase, and I want you to comment on this because I know you're let's say, for example, a company that you bring on into your portfolio. It's a company that fails to execute. That I'm just saying, right? And this is
It
me.
won't come into my portfolio if it fails to execute. But yes, continue, please.
Well, but they're not executing like they should. Let's say that.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not like, I don't
They
want
execute like a small business, not like a professional
That's
company.
right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
But a lot of times, and you can disagree with me, but
Please.
because he who wrestles with God, but most small business owners never make that jump. Let's say they're at that strike zone of 2 to 20 million in revenue. If they get to 20 million in revenue, they can, and again, right? They
The
found
world of opportunity opens.
absolutely. If they can get to 20, they can get to 50, right? There's
Yes.
no sort of artificial ceiling that bears down on them, sort of,
Correct.
right? That won't allow them to. But you said this phrase, "Do it now, do it now, do it now," and you say it over and over and over again, and it will get you up out of bed, and it will get you into the shower, and it will get you to work right before the sun comes up. And it will get you to make decisions. And I feel like, right, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, just like you, right? I don't know what you know about me, but I own a very large commercial finance company in America that just happens to, that fits perfectly with the blood libel and, a Jewish moneylender.
That's
but
right.
yeah, but listen, last year we did $2.5 billion, right?
It's amazing.
We're not a small company, but I will say the phrase, and sort of auspiciously, you mentioned it without necessarily understanding that phrase, I don't want to say belonged to, but it was definitely popularized by this fella, Brian Tracy, which is "do it now." And I think so many entrepreneurs are in their own heads, and this sort of, is a callback, or goes back to what we were saying before on how this can steal your time with distraction. They fail to make decisions. They think about making decisions. They get stuck making decisions. So I'm just curious, as we sort of like, for the first sort of chapter, right, of our chat, we chatted a lot about the dynamic of being an entrepreneur and the married life and how that sort of works with children. But as we sort of go to this sort of the next stage of our chat, you're working with companies that, again, are executing, but not necessarily executing that like they should or could. Right? How do you get entrepreneurs that generally don't want or are not receptive to other people's advice? How do you get them to do it now? Right?
Interesting. So I want to share with you a little bit about how I view the world in that context, and maybe that is gonna make a little bit more sense. So there are stages in a company's growth cycle, right? You start with the hustle, and hustle is all about execution, right? The 0 to 1, 0 to 2. You do stuff. So a lot of founders don't really have a problem in doing. They are doers by default. If you got to $2 million, you are all about doing it. So do it now is not really the problem for a lot of these founders. They are executing. They might not execute perfectly, but it doesn't really matter. It's not about doing it now. What happens is, what I've observed is there's a stage that people don't really pay attention to, and I call it the adolescent stage. It's where a company found some success, found some product market fit, found customers that love, but now it's not about do it now. It's not about execution. Now, to get off that stage of the 2 to 20 million, the lever or the point of leverage or the missing skill set is the quality of the decisions that you make. It's what do you do now? It's the prioritization of the activities that is going to make or break their ability to get to the next stage. So I want to share with you, like, I believe that companies between 0 to 2 grow by addition, meaning that they grow by saying yes. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to say yes to that client. I'm going to follow that breadcrumb and I'm going to see what works. And that's how they grow, by hustle and saying yes. What happens is that a lot of founders, when they get to that point, $2, $3, $4 million in revenue, fail to make that switch where from a saying yes mentality, I need to start saying no. And I need to start saying no because my company is bigger now. Every bet that I make is more expensive. I need to execute on all of the bets that I make. And if I say yes to too many things, I dilute my efforts because I'm still resource constrained. I'm still small. And what I found is a lot of them have a difficult time saying no to activities. And it's not their fault because it's extremely hard and there's no system to do that. But basically, the ability to hyper focus and say, okay, I grew to 0 to 2. I tried a bunch of stuff. Let's pause for a moment. Let's see what exactly am I doubling down on. That was version 1 of my business. What's version 2 of my business? And then I'm going to go and focus and execute and do now and scale this version 2. What happens is a lot of founders never pause to make that transition. So they try to scale version 1 and they get stuck because they scale an inefficient business that is very wide, a lot of products, a lot of different type of customers, a lot of different revenue streams, a lot of different channels. And it's very, very hard to do. Does that make sense where I'm going with this?
I think so. It's this sort of the same thing that we talked about, right? It's the distractions. It's just not knowing sort of what to leverage. And I think
what to double down on.
That's right. And you said it remarkably well. And I think this is the malaise of small business owners that are stuck at that revenue clip, which is, all right, I've got this loyalty that I have to these clients and I'm not valuing myself like I should, or right. Even if it's not like, but it's almost like you're institutionalizing this like way of thinking, right? At your company, right? You even said, right, the brand identity, right, becomes the brand identity is like the ethos of the founder, right?
Yes.
And I remember you saying that like your mentor had taught you that, and it's true. It is true until the founder gets out of the way. Yeah. And so I guess my follow-up question to you was, you're working with these founders and you're trying to explain to them, like, you're not valuing your time. You're not teaching your employees to value their time. We're over delivering. We're undercharging. You're saying yes to everything, which is the same type of distraction, right, as this, right?
Correct.
It's like you can, listen, I'm a fan of annuitized revenue, just like anybody else, right? The average drink at Starbucks is maybe $5, but the lifetime value, right, of a client shopping at Starbucks is $17,000. So I'm not ignoring the value of annuitized revenue, but what I am curious is, you go into this business and they're stuck between, let's say, 2 and 20 million, and you get them to sort of start saying no.
Correct.
The business is functioning by addition, like you said.
Correct.
How do we get and sort of try to make this as sort of succinct as possible? But for those who are listening, who are stuck in that revenue band, that do feel distracted, that they do feel like they're over delivering. Great. We've started to say no. We're not over delivering to every customer while still realizing that the customer lifetime value is still important, that the annuitized revenue that our book of current clients brings to us is very important, right? That legacy money that keeps coming in, right? That is dependable, that allows us to make new decisions, go into new markets, double down on new marketing strategies, and go after new clients, right? Maybe clients that have larger pocketbooks. How do you get them to see that? Because it sounds
Yeah,
it sounds like practical advice, but
it is.
it almost sounds like they're betraying their customers, right? They're betraying the loyalty to them.
Yeah, I want to touch on this
Yeah.
because you're touching. So I think we fell to the trap again. We talked about we have old clients that are the core clients, and then we're trying to add new revenue streams. And that's exactly my point. My point is that why are you trying to add new revenue streams when we have the core? So my key insight here, or what I want to leave like the audience with, is to get from the 2 to 20, to get out of it, it's not by adding more segments, customers, product, revenue stream.
Nice.
It's about identifying what in the current business is truly driving profit, and then forget about everything else for this specific stage of growth, and double down on refining the model for what is working. So stop trying to grow by addition, by adding more stuff. Pause for a moment, take a process to identify what exactly is moving the needle today, and just do this extremely well. I see all the time companies at $3 million with multiple locations. Okay, that's great, but a $3 million business is still in the infancy. So you're so new, and you just add complexity by adding more type of clients. Different type of clients require different kind of businesses. Commercial clients are very different than the private clients. It's just you're adding more. The key is to focus on the core, on what you do extremely well, and the customer that resonates the most with what you offer. And to answer your question, how do you do it? You go through a planning process that people just skip. So what I ended up doing is I ended up building a playbook or a system or a planning system that kind of sits on top of EOS,
Is this
and
the
it's
planning
free and
app?
it's open. It's based on, it's called the Clarity Playbook,
Okay.
and it's free and it's open because I want it in the marketplace for people to use. But the idea here that if you pause and you plan and you go through a practical process of identifying, okay, where is profit really coming from? Not revenue, but profit. It's not as easy to identify as intuitively we might think, but once we are able to identify, so I have 5 different types of clients. Which one is actually bringing the most profit versus the most revenue? Once you start identifying these elements, you can start redesigning what exactly is the business that I want to create for my next stage of growth.
Yeah. I get that. You know what this reminds me of, right? When Starbucks got a new CEO, right? Very recently, within the last year, and he comes in, he looks at the menu board, and he looks at how long it takes for a customer to walk into Starbucks and walk out of Starbucks.
Complexity.
And listen, undeservedly so. Like we're not if we're walking into a coffee shop, we don't want to be layered with complexities like a Cheesecake Factory menu,
Yeah.
right? This is a coffee shop. And so there were small little changes, and this is so interesting that you say, right? You're sort of getting rid of all the complexities and showing them like, hey,
Correct.
let's double down on the customer that is giving us the biggest profit margin. And again, this is assuming that this is not a tapped out niche. I think that's also
Yes.
important to sort of point out, right?
Sure.
But he comes into Starbucks and he looks at the complexities of the menu, and he looks at spreadsheets, as boring as it sounds. And he goes, all right, well, who's ordering this menu item? And they go, well, it's very rare. Gone. Okay, great. Who's ordering this complex drink that has 30 different ingredients and takes 7.5 minutes, right, at the drive-thru to get the drink to the customer? Nobody.
And that's a 7.5 minutes on a multi-million dollar, billion dollar enterprise. Imagine what happens in a $5 million business.
That's right. It's even
It
worse.
just it
It's even
ruins the
worse.
business. It kills it.
Yeah.
And when they want to scale, it is just scale complexity, and it doesn't work.
It's just
It
more
becomes
chaos.
impossible to manage.
No, it's just
So
it's
before you scale,
yeah.
shrink, identify really what the model is,
Right.
and you don't need to be everything for everyone.
Yeah.
And you don't need to have all the frappuccinos if you're like, you don't need to have frappuccinos if you really, most of your clients are blue collar that buy black coffee, just for example.
Yeah.
And shrink, and then you take that model and then you scale that model.
Yeah.
But you don't scale what you tried and from the 0 to 1. You pause, you shrink, you identify, you redesign, and then you scale it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get out of that danger zone. It's just it's very hard.
So going back, and hopefully you're good on time. Just a few more minutes. I'm curious for a guy who made this exit from venture capital to starting up this business. We never really talked about that journey, right? You sort of ejected and left, and sort of were like, we're going from like chapter 2 of the novel of Yarin to like chapter 7. And everyone's like, well, what happened between 3 and 6? Can you just briefly kind of help us understand, not necessarily why the decision took place, but more sort of details wise,
Yeah.
right? How does somebody make that change? What are the capital requirements? How do you raise the money? How do you find the leads? How do you find the customers? How do you find the folks that are interested in sort of being in your portfolio?
Yeah. So I'll share with you. So I worked in a venture capital firm in Chicago as an entrepreneur in residence. So what that means is I was basically an entrepreneur employed by the fund. And the fund sent me to their portfolio companies, specifically to the distressed ones, meaning the one that didn't have any money or ran out of money. And my job was to turn them around. And that's what I did. I came with I didn't have a methodology back then, but I had some ideas and I came with resources, and my job was to turn them around. But at the same time I was doing this, I was also volunteering as a business mentor at SCORE and at the University of Chicago. And I saw something very interesting. I saw the amount of effort that I put into venture-backed portfolio companies, basically startups. And they got my services for free, and I'm expensive, and I came with resources, and I came to fix businesses that have no product market fit, are still trying to figure things out. But at the same time, I work with, I want to say, a little bit more traditional businesses. Some of them were blue collar, some of them were services, but amazing businesses, cash flow businesses, profitable businesses. But I could not interact with them more than like once a month, once a quarter. I gave them advice, and then it was up to them to like figure things out.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, wait, there's a huge gap in the market where there are these amazing businesses that usually are bootstrapped. They're not really playing the startup game of raising more capital, but they have amazing businesses. They have customers that love them. They have product that people love to buy. They have cash flow. They're profitable, but they're just still small businesses and they're not investable. So I wanted to say, I went on a journey and I want to say, okay, I want to invest in these kind of businesses because I see the potential. But as I went through that process, I discovered that even if I gave them money, I wasn't sure that I'm going to get my money back because they were not ready for capital. And I know you're in the capital allocation business. They were just too risky. If I gave them $1, I did not have a lot of confidence I'm going to see my money again. They needed a different types of support. They didn't need just capital. They needed to mature. So I ended up building a framework to mature them. And basically it's a planning system, but the idea really is to take a business that has potential and walk them through a maturity process to get them to the point where they are now investable, de-risk asset that then are interesting to private equity and have so much more opportunity to exit. Private equity does not invest in a $5 million business in revenue. It's just too small, too risky. Okay, but that $5 million can still make, I don't know, $750,000 in net profit a year. They just need someone to help them step up. And if you are able to help them step up, there's a world of opportunity to open. That's my investment thesis. So businesses with potential need specific help. They need to put some systems in place, yes, but most of the time they need, I call it fractional partners because they need like a fractional, they almost like the experienced entrepreneur in the room making decisions with them,
Yeah.
but I don't tell them what to do. Like it's somewhere, I'm not a coach. I'm more hands-on than a regular coach. I'm more hands-on than a regular board member, but I'm not sitting and executing with you on a weekly basis. I'm not your fractional CMO or fractional CFO. You don't need me for that because they know how to execute. What they need help with is the decision making along the way. Does that resonate?
I think so. Yeah. I think people want to hear more. As we sort of wrap up, can you just help us understand, like, are there certain verticals that you prefer to work in? If folks listening are in home services business, they own a roofing company, they're an electrical contractor, a plumber, and they've got a $3 million business and they want to get it to the next level, but their life feels like chaos, right? For
Yeah.
so many small business owners, I think more than struggling with money, they struggle with people. And by that, I mean, right, sort of there's the people within the company and then the customer base, right, that they market to. Those are sort of the two unknowns that they've never figured out. They're a subject matter expert in their field, but it doesn't necessarily give them the right side of the brain that works really well on how to deal with difficult clients or how to scale marketing or even internally, right, how to work well with employees. With home services businesses as an example, which are businesses that are sort of sort of not necessarily right now at risk of AI, let's say,
Yeah.
wrapping their tentacles around it, right? We're talking blue collar labor intensive
Yeah.
businesses. Those businesses are cash machines, frankly. Roofing,
Yeah.
electrical, plumbing, um, general or those sort of like the myriad of contractors, right? Are those types of businesses you work with? Or are there specific verticals that you prefer to work in?
So I am industry agnostic and vertical agnostic because as long as it's not a regulated market, which gives us a very little play with or room to play with, I don't really care about the vertical. I really care about the founder and what they've built. So companies that I work with, it doesn't even start with investment. We just start by deploying this playbook and kind of help them. Because a lot of them tend to EOS or they think that like, execution is the problem. So they put execution system, think it's going to solve the problem. It doesn't. So usually it's founder operated, meaning that if there's multiple partners and it's super complex and no one can make a decision, not a good fit. $2 to $20 million in sales, so something is working. Not entirely sure what to double down on, and I found when you're describing the people friction, a lot of time what I found is missing upstream clarity, because a lot of times the founders are not clear where the company is going, so employees at the lower level have difficult time prioritizing decisions. So they come back to the founder. And it creates a lot of friction. But if you had a cohesive one-page plan of this is exactly what we're doing, this is how we're going to approach this is what we're doubling down on, it enables your C-suite or your employees or your leadership team to execute alone. Right? That's the missing piece because they don't know what's in your mind. And founders, a lot of times they think, I know my strategy, it's super clear to me. And then when I run an exercise when I basically survey the entire team and ask them the same questions about their strategy, their finance and operations, and I get wildly different answers. That different answers are what slowly killing your business, right? Because they don't share the same mental model of what you're building here. So either they come back to the founder for every question, or they just don't execute fast enough and they don't take enough initiative. So it's like it's a trap.
Yeah.
Very easily solvable trap, but that's what this is.
Yeah.
So your question, founder operated, simple structure. You have to have basically a beginning of a leadership team, about 3 people that they can otherwise we can't move forward. And I don't really care about the industry. I work with blue collar. I work with e-commerce brands. Um, all I care about is that they care about growing profitably and not just growing for the sake of growth.
Yeah.
So if they run like startups that are just about revenue and about I just want to raise more capital and just need to show that I have more clients, even though if the clients are not profitable,
Yeah.
not a good fit.
How do people get in touch with you? Like, if I own a small business and I want access to the playbook,
Yeah.
let's say I don't know if I'm even necessarily interested, but I want to read the playbook. I want to
Yeah.
find out, like, I want to run some tests. I want to run a survey. Like, am I doing this wrong? Am I trapped inside this chaos that I've sort of built for myself, right? I'm sort of trapped in my own prison. How do I get access to that?
You go online. It's playbook.fractional.partners
Okay.
and it's free. It's in Notion. It's like wiki and it's meant as a DIY. Basically, the idea behind this playbook is you create 3 sources of truth, one pagers. What's the financial source of truth? Where is money coming from? Strategic source of truth. What business model are we doubling down on?
Yeah.
And then operational source of truth. What needs to happen tomorrow? And the whole playbook is basically sessions and workshops. We call them plays to help you create those sources of truth and to update those at specific intervals.
Hmm.
That's
Awesome.
it.
Yeah. Very
All
simple.
there. It's
Very
all
simple.
DIY.
Yeah, it's not
It-
impossible,
simple
ladies
is the
and
key.
gentlemen. Yeah, simple is the key. Listen, are you on social media, by the way? Can people find you like on Instagram or on TikTok? Do you make content about these playbooks, these
don't.
plays? Let me
I
let,
don't because
let me
yeah,
let me listen. I don't want to hear excuses. I want to give you the last piece of advice, right?
please.
It's fine to sit in the desk and it's fine to lock yourself in the basement and it's fine to offer these playbooks, but there's a fellow named Dave Ramsey. Are you familiar with him at all?
I am.
If you had a show on YouTube where folks could call in and they would say, Yarin, listen, I saw the playbook. I love it. I'm stuck here. Or I've never heard of the playbook, but I own this type of business. And the one thing that I think is like the biggest hurdle, the biggest obstacle for us getting from here to there is X.
Yeah.
I think a call-in show that's live, that's authentic, I think you would do a great job. You've been a terrific guest. I really appreciate you being on the show, Yarin, and I want to hear more. Again, if you're interested, it's
Fractional.partners.
playbook.fractional.partners. Okay.
Thank you for having me, William. This
Yeah,
was really fun.
you're amazing, man. What a journey
Appreciate
you are on, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a dad, as a husband. I think, too often is the case, we're never talking about how to manage both org charts, right? Both within
Yeah.
our company and at
It's
home,
funny.
right? And I think you've got
Now
the
who's
playbook.
using business terms on a family context?
Listen, I think you've unlocked that,
The same organization,
that's
same
right.
shtick.
Well, I want to
Yes.
hear more.
Just before we got, I want to leave people with this
Please,
regardless.
please.
Regardless of me, with me or without me, if you have a $2 to $20 million business, stop and plan and just like figure out what is truly moving the needle, not on revenue, because revenue is vanity, but actual profit. Shrink, tighten your business model, and then scale. You'll thank me later. It just becomes so much easier and so much more valuable. Everything becomes easier if you are explicit around your decisions and what you say yes to and what you say no to. Now imagine a company that has 50 people. You need to pause. You can use the playbook. You can use whatever you think you need. I built this because I want it to be as prevalent as EOS. That's why I made it open and free. Not as a lead magnet. You don't even need to put an email. It's because like I found the gap. People just are missing a practical system to how to make decisions, how to plan.
Yeah.
Try it.
I love it. It's funny.
Cool.
This is like Moses, right? Climbing Mount Sinai and finding the 10 Commandments and bringing it down and going, guys, I've got
It's here.
It's
Use it.
here.
Use
It's
it.
free. Use it. I've got it for you. Listen,
Yeah.
if you own a small business and you're somewhere between $2 to $20 million and you feel like you're struggling in your business and that it's pure chaos, you have loyal customers, you've got a business plan, there's revenue, right? There's profit,
Yes.
but you want more profit, right? You want to build a business that's a legacy.
Yes.
Go download the playbook, contact Yarin,
Yes.
build a better
Yes.
business. Build a better business for your children, build a better business for your legacy. stop.
Build an asset.
That's
Just
right.
turn it into an asset.
That's right.
That's it.
Right.
If a small business, turn it into something that is actually of value.
I love it.
It's not rocket science. There's a process.
I love it. Simplification, ladies and gentlemen, simplification, right?
That's
Find
right.
out what
That's
you're
the
good
whole.
at, find out where the profits lie, and double down on that. Yarin, you're an amazing guest. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. You guys got to check out Yarin. He's amazing. See you, Yarin.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.